Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast, the United States and Israel forging alliance, joint efforts to secure peace and prevent nuclear threats from Iran. Meantime, Robert Bauer is convicted on all counts for Pittsburgh synagogue massacre. And later, Israeli athletes with cognitive disabilities ready to shine at Special Olympics in Berlin, defying limits and inspiring unity. Amid reports of an emerging interim Iran deal, the U.S. is giving Israel new security guarantees. According to Israeli media reports, Washington will make sure Israel maintains a qualitative military edge and has a free hand to act against regional adversaries. ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
As Washington appears to be edging toward an interim nuclear agreement with Tehran, the U.S. is also making gestures to bolster Israeli security. The new measures were discussed between U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in a meeting in Brussels.
אנחנו נדון בפגישה במחויבות ההדדית שיש לשתי המדינות לוודא שבידי איראן לא תהיה לעולם יכולת גרעינית צבאית.
Austin reportedly made clear to Gallant that even if the U.S. and Israel are closely cooperating on the Iran issue, Israel still maintains a free hand to act against its adversaries. Gallant met with Austin on the sidelines of a NATO defense ministers gathering in Brussels, and the defense chiefs discussed the wide range of threats posed by Iran. The U.S. and Iran have both confirmed indirect negotiations through the Sultanate of Oman, with nuclear issues, U.S. sanctions, and an exchange of prisoners on the table. The U.S. has updated Israel on the emerging understandings, and Jerusalem is not trying to foil the talks. Last week, Netanyahu informed Israeli officials about the details of the potential mini-nuclear deal or political ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, aimed at anchoring the current status quo and preventing a potentially catastrophic escalation. Netanyahu said the emerging mini-deal was acceptable to Israel.
And joining us now on the U.S., Israel, and Iran triangle is senior fellow at FDD, Brigadier General Reserves Professor Yaakov Nager. Yaakov, the U.S. and Iran are moving toward a so-called mini-nuclear deal. The U.S. is at the same time saying that Israel's qualitative edge will be maintained. What does that mean exactly? I mean, even more advanced U.S. weapons?
Look, you are connecting two things that are not connected. There is behind the scenes very, very, very bad. They call it understanding and not deal, so it will be easier for them to go forward because they are not going to bring it to the Congress. Now, the problem is that there are, yes, it's a mini deal as someone is calling it, but there are things inside these understandings that are even worse than this faulty, very, very bad deal of 2015, because it will be the first time that Iran will be de facto allowed to enrich to 60. What these understandings are saying, that Iran will stop enriching above 60 and will stop accumulating. But what they have until now for 60, something between 2 to 5 bombs, and all the advanced centrifuges and the ballistic missiles with warheads that can be nuclear. And of course, some people call it freeze for freeze. I call it quiet for money, because the United States, Biden administration, they want quiet until the elections of November 24, and they think that this so-called understanding will bring them until November 24 with Israel not attacking and some other not attacking. The problem is that after an agreement like this, the United States will take it off the table. Barbara Leaf, Jake Sullivan, they both say that agreement like this is like the demon, or I don't remember the word, it's back to the box. It's not back to the box because it's there and it's ticking and it's very, 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 very dangerous. And if Israel is not going to stand on its feet and say very, very loud, and it doesn't have anything to do with politics and right and left, because when Netanyahu was in the opposition, he attacked Lapid and Bennett. Now Bennett and Lapid attacked him. I think both of them should stop attacking each other and together oppose this deal. This is one way. And of course, all the internal things in Israel should not have any effect, any things to do together with what is going on about this deal. And of course, nothing that is concerned with the so-called maybe trilateral deal, U.S., Saudi, Israel, about normalization. It's very, very, very important. I wish it will happen, but all of those things are not to compare to what is going on with the Iranian deal. This is the most important thing. This is on the agenda. This is something that we cannot compromise.
Yaakov Nagel, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
U.S. chipmaker Intel Corp has announced plans to invest $25 billion in a new factory in Israel, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This investment is considered the largest ever international investment in the country. The factory, located in Kiryat Gat, is expected to open in 2027 and operate until at least 2035, providing employment opportunities for thousands of people, as confirmed by Israel's finance ministry. Intel's presence in Israel has significantly grown over the years, with the company becoming the largest privately held employer and exporter in the country's electronics and information industry. Prime Minister Netanyahu expressed his enthusiasm for the deal during a televised announcement to the cabinet, hailing it as a tremendous achievement for the Israeli economy. The investment of 90 billion shekels, equivalent to $25 billion, represents the largest investment ever made by an international company in Israel. Hundreds of Israeli Merkava tanks will be sold from Israel to other countries for the first time. The historic deal would reportedly see Merkava Mark II and Mark III tanks going to two European countries that are stepping up security due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. And ILTV's William Sharon has the details.
The Merkava tanks were placed in storage in recent years, but after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there is a renewed demand of armed vehicles in Europe, and the tanks were taken out of storage and prepared for sale. The legendary Israeli Merkava entered service 40 years ago, but they have never been sold and only have been seen in action in Israel. The tanks being prepared for sale are the Mark II and Mark III models, manufactured in Israel in the 1980s and 1990s. The scoop of the deal will reportedly reach several tens of millions of dollars below the sale price of new Western tanks. IDF armored brigades are currently equipped with advanced Merkava Mark IV tanks, with an active defense system against anti-tank missiles and computerized command and control systems. The Defense Ministry has not yet specified the names of the two countries buying the tanks. The engine and some mechanical parts in the tanks are American-made and require approval from the Department of Defense in Washington.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has faced backlash after claiming that Jewish Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is a disgrace to his faith. Critics argue that Putin's focus on Zelensky's Jewish identity is an attempt to divert attention from Russia's aggression against Ukraine.
У меня много друзей, евреев с детства. Они говорят, Зеленский не еврей. Это позор еврейского народа.
In a recent statement, Russian President Vladimir Putin made controversial remarks about Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is Jewish. During an economic forum in St. Petersburg, Putin claimed that Zelensky is seen as a disgrace to his faith by other Jewish individuals. Putin went on to criticize Zelensky for allegedly supporting neo-Nazis and accused him of putting them on pedestal. However, Putin's comments were met with swift responses. Former Israeli Minister Natan Sharansky expressed pride in having a Jewish president in Ukraine and praised Zelensky for uniting the country against aggression. Deborah Lipstadt, the U.S. State Department's anti-Semitism envoy, dismissed Putin's focus on Zelensky's Jewishness and argued that it was meant to distract from Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Putin has consistently tried to portray his war on Ukraine as an effort to denazify the country, a claim that has been widely rejected by the international community. Russia has also accused Ukraine of mistreating Russian speakers, drawing parallels to Nazi Germany, but these allegations have been disputed by the Ukrainian government and Jewish community. Putin emphasized Russia's commitment to fighting neo-Nazism, citing the country's losses during World War II. He expressed frustration that his perspective is not being heard by others. While Zelensky does not practice religion openly, he identifies as Jewish and has spoken about his family's experiences during the Nazi invasion of Ukraine. His great-grandfather and 3 of his grandfather's brothers lost their lives in the war, as his grandfathers survived by joining the Red Army to fight against the Nazis. Zelensky's grandmother survived by leaving the country, but the majority of Jews who remained there were tragically murdered. Zelensky has also mentioned having relatives who moved to Israel during the 1990s, and he himself has visited the country as an actor and comedian. As a Ukrainian president, he has visited Israel once for a Holocaust commemoration event shortly before the COVID-19 pandemic began. This as Ukraine's First Lady, Olena Zelensky, expected in Israel this week at invitation of Michal Herzog.